Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are going deep into one of the most spectacular and terrifying events in modern science. We are looking at the Greenland Ice Sheet. Specifically, we are looking at a phenomenon that turns the solid ice into a hydraulic machine capable of releasing the energy of a tactical nuclear weapon. We are talking about the vanishing lakes of Greenland. Imagine you are flying over the Greenland Ice Sheet in the height of the Arctic summer. Below you is a blinding white landscape of frozen water, but scattered across this white expanse are thousands of sapphire jewels. These are supraglacial lakes. They are vast pools of meltwater, some spanning 5 to 10 square kilometers, sitting right on top of the ice in what we call the ablation zone. They look serene. They look permanent. But to the glaciologists who camp on the ice, these lakes are ticking time bombs. One day, a lake holding billions of gallons of water is there. The next day, it is gone. And I do not mean it evaporated or trickled away. I mean it vanished in a violent, cataclysmic event known as rapid lake drainage. In a matter of hours, a lake the size of a city can empty entirely, punching a hole through a kilometer of solid ice and sending a Niagara-scale torrent plunging to the bedrock below. For decades, this was a mystery. How does water break through that much ice so quickly? Today, we are going to break down the mechanics of this event, the hidden plumbing of the ice sheet, and why this matters for the future of our oceans. Let's start with the anatomy of a disappearance. To understand how a lake vanishes, you have to understand the material properties of ice. We think of ice as a solid. On the scale of a continent, over long periods, it flows like viscous honey. But when you subject it to sudden stress, ice behaves like glass. It becomes brittle. It wants to crack. Every summer, as the air gets warmer, the surface of the ice sheet melts. This water trickles down slopes and collects in depressions, forming these supraglacial lakes. These lakes are heavy. A large one can weigh millions of tons. For a long time, the prevailing theory, known as the hydrostatic theory, was that the sheer weight of the water simply crushed the ice beneath it until it snapped. It makes sense intuitively. But it was wrong. Scientists observed that some massive, deep lakes would sit happily all summer, while smaller, shallower lakes nearby would suddenly drain. Weight wasn't the only factor. The breakthrough came when researchers realized the trigger wasn't just the lake itself, but the movement of the ice around it. This is the hydrofracture mechanism. It starts with the streams flowing across the ice. Before these streams even reach a lake, they often fall into moulins, which are vertical shafts that carry water into the glacier's interior. When this initial pulse of water hits the bedrock, a kilometer down, it acts like a hydraulic jack. It actually lifts the ice sheet up. We are talking about lifting an entire continent of ice, perhaps only by a few centimeters, but that is enough. This uplift creates a bulge in the surface ice. As the ice bends over this pressurized blister of water, the surface comes under immense tension. It stretches. And ice is terrible at handling tension. It cracks. If that crack opens beneath the supraglacial lake, the game is over. The water in the lake, which was held in check, now rushes into this new fissure. This is where physics takes a violent turn. Water is denser than ice. As it fills the crack, it exerts an outward pressure that is stronger than the pressure of the ice trying to close the crack. The water acts as a supersonic wedge, driving the fracture deeper and deeper. A crack can propagate from the surface to the bed, a distance of over 3,000 feet in minutes. Once that connection is made, the lake drains in a vortex. The flow rate can exceed the discharge of the Amazon River. In one famous event, known as the North Lake Drainage, 12 billion gallons of water disappeared in less than 2 hours. But where does all that water go? This brings us to the second part of our deep dive, the subglacial hydraulic web. The Greenland Ice Sheet sits on top of a dynamic drainage system that is constantly evolving. It is a shapeshifter. In the winter and early spring, the weight of the ice crushes any channels at the bed. The drainage system is inefficient. It is just a network of linked cavities and thin films of water. When that first summer meltwater, or a sudden lake drainage, hits this system, it has nowhere to go. The pressure spikes violently. It lifts the ice and lubricates the bedrock. This causes the glacier to accelerate, sliding faster toward the ocean. This is known as the spring speed-up. However, as summer goes on and the water flow becomes continuous, the physics flips. The rushing water generates frictional heat, which melts the ice at the bed, carving out large, semicircular tunnels called R-channels. These channels are efficient. They act like a sewer system, transporting vast quantities of water at low pressure. Once these R-channels form, the ice sheet settles back down, friction increases, and the glacier actually slows down, even though melting is at its peak. But rapid lake drainages disrupt this orderly evolution. A draining lake delivers a massive shock pulse. It overwhelms the efficient channels or forces open new pathways in the inefficient system. Recent studies from 2024 and 2025 have shown that this can trigger a cascade effect. The drainage of one lake changes the stress field of the surrounding ice so much that it cracks the ice under neighboring lakes. You get a domino effect, clearing large swaths of the ablation zone in days and sending a synchronized pulse of freshwater into the ocean. For years, there was a discrepancy in the data. Scientists would see a lake drain on satellite imagery, but the gauges at the outlet of the glacier wouldn't register a corresponding spike in water outflow. The water was missing. We now know that the ice sheet acts like a giant sponge. This is the concept of cryo-hydrologic storage. Not all fractures reach the bed. Some stop halfway, creating vast, hidden reservoirs inside the ice, called glacial aquifers. Water can stay there year-round, insulated from the winter cold. Furthermore, when a lake drains to the bed, the water doesn't always flow to the ocean. It can spread out sideways, filling subglacial cavities and depressions. It gets trapped. But here's the critical detail. As that water sits in the cold interior of the ice, some of it refreezes. When water freezes, it releases latent heat. This heat warms the surrounding ice, making it softer and less viscous. This phenomenon, called cryo-warming, means the ice can deform and flow faster, independent of how slippery the bedrock is. Finally, we need to talk about the future, because the situation is changing. The most concerning discovery of the mid-2020s is that these lakes are migrating. As the Arctic warms, the melt line is climbing higher up the ice sheet. Lakes are now forming in the upper ablation zone and even the lower accumulation zone, areas that used to be too cold for liquid water. This inland expansion is a major threat. The ice in the interior is colder, thicker, and stiffer. The subglacial drainage system there is almost entirely inefficient. When lakes drain in these high-elevation regions, the water hits a bed that has zero capacity to handle it. The result is a much more pronounced and sustained lubrication effect. We are seeing evidence of this in what are called triangular fracture fields. These are scars left by attempted lake drainages in the interior that didn't quite make it to the bed, failed hydrofractures. It shows the ice sheet is trying to adapt to this new stress, but its structural integrity is degrading. The debate over whether basal sliding or surface runoff is the main driver of mass loss is largely settled. It is a feedback loop. The lubrication speeds up the ice, moving more of it into lower, warmer elevations where it melts faster. The rapid drainage of lakes is the spark plug in this engine. Looking ahead to the late 2020s and 2030s, we are looking at a non-linear response. We might see the activation of ghost drainage networks, ancient river valleys buried beneath the ice that haven't seen flowing water for 10,000 years. The mystery of the vanishing lakes has transitioned from a puzzle of how they drain to a warning of what their drainage means. The hydraulic system of Greenland is waking up, and its veins are flowing with the meltwater of a warming world.